We're pleased to meet with you to discuss our practice of payola. As you know, the music industry is getting more competitive. With overproduction, it is difficult for us to commercially break even. Everything we've done is in the company's best interest. We will now take questions.
I've heard that DJs are engaging in payola. That song Jenny from the Block is getting a lot of airtime. That can't be the DJ's pick. Why is Sony bribing them?
Listeners' preferences can be influenced by DJs, the dominant selectors, because DJs have the autonomy to determine the music that gets played by the stations. Any songs that have been given airtime will be able to reach more consumers. Consequently, the DJs have the ability to amplify value co-creation, so a strong relationship with them will grant us more airtime and ultimately greater sales. Are your peers taking part in similar behavior? We do not believe that peer selectors, record companies such as EMI and Universal, decide quality standards in this market because listeners place greater trust in DJs' expertise. However, we maintain relationships with record companies and artists to stay aware of their practices and develop our competitive advantage.
Don't you think it's unfair to manipulate consumers' trust?
We value our consumers. Our relationship with them allows us to continue to sell our music. Consumers, as market selectors, select songs based on their preferences. Still, expert legitimacy can affect purchase intention and consumers' song preferences. We try to keep payola confidential between our company and the DJs, who have the expert legitimacy and authenticity.
How does authenticity affect value creation for Sony?
Authenticity means having a knowledge of the product category and history. Sony has always stressed the importance of authenticity. The selection system has moved away from market selection to expert selection, implying that DJs play a more substantial role because they have a greater understanding of this product category, namely music. If there are no additional questions, we promise to further discuss this issue at our next board meeting. Thank you. We must discuss the payola lawsuit. A legitimacy crisis from this lawsuit could seriously damage our reputation and threaten our profits. Our management will have to handle the fallout from stakeholders such as shareholders, consumers, and artists. The lawsuit could also cause our stock price to decrease, which would place a burden on our shareholders. We wouldn't want them selling their shares. Furthermore, we risk losing loyal customers, Sony's largest external stakeholders, as they switch to competitors' products.
We're concerned that this will affect employee motivation. Our workforce may lose confidence in this company. Lower profits could make them doubt their job security or cause them to leave Sony.
We need consumers to take pride in our brand. To some degree, the public is induced by pride to use specific Sony products. Sony music sales may largely decrease due to loss of pride, which not only affects the company but the artists we represent. Our listeners want the company to perform ethically and responsibly, so they can ensure they are getting a high-quality selection of music. As a global entertainment giant, it is critical for Sony to show a positive brand image by doing business ethically. And in this lawsuit, payola is being contested under 3 different ethical models.
4. It is vital to satisfy all stakeholders' goals. Otherwise, stakeholders will not continue to invest in us. In order to salvage our reputation and mitigate economic damage for all, let's try to settle this lawsuit as quickly as possible.
Would you say that payola is ethically defensible under a utilitarian model?
Payola maximizes the majority of stakeholders' interests. For Sony's internal stakeholders, shareholders, managers, and the workforce, commercial benefits of payola outweigh legal risks. These benefits are so substantial that even renowned economists argue in favor of legalizing payola.
If payola considered the greatest good for the greatest number, it would not compromise interests of numerous stakeholders outside Sony. The stakeholders internal to corporations who don't use payola, as well as the millions of consumers who listen to the radio each week, clearly represent the greatest number. Let's look at moral rights. Can payola be defended using this model?
The fundamental rights of the stakeholders are still warranted. The practice of payola only violates transparency, one of 6 moral rights. The other 5 are life and safety, privacy, conscious freedom, expression freedom, and private property. Therefore, payola is not morally incorrect, as stakeholders' rights are still being protected.
Nonetheless, you concede that payola does compromise radio listeners' right to transparency, which can be defined as the right of stakeholders not to be intentionally misled by information. Wouldn't you agree that Sony misled radio patrons into thinking that songs on the radio are DJ selections of high-quality music, rather than influenced by bribery?
Yes.
Therefore, the moral rights model is not entirely upheld. What about the justice model? Payola only benefits Sony stakeholders and the DJs who receive bribes. This unfairly burdens smaller record companies and their artists, whose songs do not have similar mass marketing opportunities. Do you think there is any reasonable defense for payola here?
Not under this model.
To conclude that payola is unethical, as any defenses under the utilitarian or moral rights models are flawed. Moreover, payola is completely indefensible under the justice model. Nothing further.